Yeah.
But
Maybe he's still there.
yeah, who knows?
Do you have contact with this guy?
No, oh no, I wish I did. I kind of thought he was going to come out after I did,
Right.
and I think I took so much flack and it's so much shit for what went on. I think actually I wound up helping security there, and everybody became afraid of doing or saying anything after that.
So, what kind of reports did you have to give? Like, so you're not making much progress, right? You're just trying to figure out what this thing is, and it seems impossible. So,
Well, we didn't personally make them. I mean, we were always there was never a lot of information that we gained. Um, the guy you would call him our supervisor. His name was Dennis Mariani, and kind of a military looking guy, and he would routinely pop in, during the day, and hey, what's going on, guys? And he would essentially relay any information, anything new we came up with. I mean, he was our go-between, where we presented him the information, then he took it to wherever they were, you know, assembling all the data from everybody.
now I assume you're working normal days, like an 8-hour day.
No,
No.
no, it was really weird that I would be only called in on certain times and certain days, and they would be weird hours too. Most of the time was later in the evening. I mean, I can get a call at 11 o'clock at night, and they'll say, it's now 11 o'clock. Um, by 11:45, you need to be at the McCarran terminal, and we'll let you know when we have more information.
But what did you do while you were there? If you're looking at this object, this reactor, and you can't figure out what it is or how it works, other than the fact that it works on this element that we don't even know about.
Sure. I mean, the thing was what you do in with anything. If you're trying to analyze it, all you can do is perform tests. And all we did is try and come up with every kind of test we possibly could. I mean, we tested, you know, it violated a lot of what we thought was impossible to violate. I mean, one of the first laws of thermodynamics, I mean, essentially, any machine, any device that operates always makes extra heat. Nothing works at 100% efficient. Even the headphones you're wearing, anything that takes power, some of that power is going to be converted to heat, and it's just wasted. This didn't. I mean, we looked at back then we had infrared cameras. They're different today, but back then you had to pour liquid nitrogen into the camera to cool the sensor down, and get these infrared images you've seen. But it never got, no matter what the load was on the reactor, it never got above ambient temperature, which is impossible. I mean, you're you know pulling out huge amounts of power, and nothing ever gets warm. Um, we tried measuring magnetic fields, and there was nothing there. So we started playing around with the emission from the emitters, the gravity wave itself, and saw what we could do with it and how it was focused. So we really spent all our time just trying to see what the stuff can do and what we can control.
So you were seeing what it could do, but you couldn't ever figure out how it was doing it.
No, not really. I mean, we really could only use or come up with a best guess. Now I can't say we really that I could absolutely state for certainty how anything actually worked.
Now, how did you know at all how they were piloting it? Because they were doing some tests where they were having these things fly around in the sky, and this is what gets us deeper into your story.
Right. I was out there for one test. Right. In fact, I was in with Barry in the lab, and Dennis came in and said, "We're about to run a test. Why don't you guys come out?" Or I think he said, "Barry, why don't you come out here and bring Bob with you?" We went out there, and the craft was already outside the hangar and was just preparing to lift off. Now, they were in communication with somebody in the craft.
So there's a person in the craft.
Yeah, there was certainly a person in there. Now, it's not a comfortable place to be in because it's small. So the guy has to be sitting on the floor in the middle, my best guess.
And this is the same specific craft that you worked on because that was the only craft that you were in.
The only one that I touched and worked on. and it quietly lifted off the ground, which was incredibly impressive to see.
Quietly or silently?
What's well, quietly, because
Did it
it
make some sort
produced
of a noise?
it produced um, a little corona discharge from the bottom. A corona discharge is kind of a high voltage brush, little bluish glow discharge. As it was lifting off the ground, you can hear a slight hiss sound. Now, as soon as it cleared the ground by about 5 or 10 feet, maybe even less than that, the hissing stopped and the blue glow disappeared. So it lifted off quietly and then it hovered silently, if you want to be specific.
Wow. So then what kind of maneuvers was it doing?
It took off for that particular time. It took off, moved a little around to the left and right, and then sat back down. The um, the craft itself, um, they communicated with it with a because I saw the guy talking uh, in a regular VHF radio to the person in the craft, and I even saw the frequency that was on the frequency counter of the communication, the transceiver there. Um, but what's weird is he shouldn't be able to communicate with the craft with a radio. The radio the radio wave should bend around the craft. I mean, it shouldn't be possible. Every single thing about the craft and the way they operated didn't make any sense to us. I mean, that's something we talked about for a while after.
Why should the frequency bend around the craft?
Well, you really have to look at the way the gravity wave comes out of the craft. The reactor's in the center, and there's a waveguide that goes up to the top. There's actually a small appendage that sticks out of the top of the craft, and it produces a heart-shaped gravitational distortion around the craft. Now, if the craft is sitting in the air and you walk underneath it and look up, you actually cannot see the craft. The light bends around it. You're bending gravity bends light. It bends radio waves. It shouldn't be possible to communicate with a craft that has an envelope around it that's distorting all forms of energy. But they were apparently in contact with it.
Somehow or another, through some unexplained way that they didn't bother explaining to you.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing gets up. It just does some very simple maneuvers: left, right, goes down. And did they discuss this with you? I mean, they said they wanted you to see it.
No, they just wanted they didn't discuss anything with me. It sat down. We looked around for a bit, and Barry said, "Let's go back." We went back in the lab. All we got to do was see it. Yeah, fast forward to some months later, I did have the test flight schedule of the craft. Now, they had times they had designated high performance tests. This obviously wasn't one that was a high performance test. The high performance test goes above the mountain range, and they do much more radical moves with the thing. Look, this is a prized item, and they're not doing anything like taking it out of the atmosphere or flying around to other countries or anything like that. They just play with this thing right over the test site. But they were doing some radical moves with it. And since I had the test flight schedule, statistically, the amount of traffic in the surrounding areas on the highway was lowest on Wednesdays. And that's why Dennis told us that all the test flights occurred only on Wednesdays, because it'd be the least chance that anyone would see what's going on.
And this was before the government had expanded the forbidden territory around Area 51 and Papoose Lake and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, I think that occurred after my story came out. Then people started going up on the mountaintops and trying to look down into there, and they kind of freaked out and then did the land grab and pushed everybody back. But yeah, I think all that occurred long after that I came out.
So you're working there, and while you're working there, you're under this crazy schedule. Forgive me for explaining your story, but you would get these phone calls. You would have to go to the airport at 11 p.m., and your wife started thinking that you were having an affair.
Yeah, apparently so. Now, I did give my permission to have, as part of the, security clearance process, I gave written permission to have the phones monitored and things of that sort. So they weren't doing any covert stuff. with any Q clearance, or which is civilian top secret clearance or military top secret clearance, they go talk to friends and, you know, places you've been, make sure you're not connected to foreign countries, but, monitoring your phone is nothing unusual. However, they insisted that, you don't even talk to your loved one, to your partner, to your wife, whatever, about what's going on. So she was essentially in the dark and didn't know the phone was being monitored. Well, part of the security clearance is that not only do you not have any connections to foreign countries and aren't a maniac, but you have to have a stable home life too. Well, she started having an affair with a flight instructor. Now, they were monitoring this on the phone, and they knew it, and I didn't. So they stopped me coming in, and their attitude at the time was, we need to see how this is going to play out, and if Lazar is going to get a little weird or anything. So let's just, hold him off from coming in and, see what happens.
And they explained this to you, what was happening?
Well, after the fact, yeah, because time kind of went on, and there were guys that were following me around, and I started getting a little concerned, going, well, shit, are they booting me out of the project? And if so, they're not just going to let me hang out at home and go get a new job knowing what I know. So as time went on, I started getting a little concerned, and I took my closest friends and just kind of got together and I said, hey, remember that job I told you about? This is what's going on. And you don't need to take my word for it. Wednesday night, we need to all go out here. I want to show you what's going on. So I took everybody and we went out to, remember, since I had the test flight schedule, and went outside the base, out into the desert.
Welcome to the Trailer Park Boys podcast, brought to you in part by SwearNet.com, the only place where you can see the video version of this podcast.
Mic on.
All right.
Salah. Celerim.
in life I want. Pretty way too much currency wasted on it.
Mic off. Mic on.
Now starting to get that damage up there.
May reason let's speak again soon.
Power siphon.
My knowledge remember, life is precious. Who there?
Freedom comes to those who fight. Remember, we do this for freedom.
I prefer killing over negotiating. Leave some for me this time, you big bloody bastard! But I had the upper hand.
It's over, Leo. Where's the giver?
Absolutely brutal! You're more! Deal's a deal.
Small stream.
My mana is gone.
confuse me, you did. Snap your little neck for that.
Pirates don't do well with
My head
boredom.
still hurts.
Let's scrap.
Villainous scoundrel. Slink back to the seas, Reinrot.
Captain Gothgren
My mana is
escapes
gone.
again.
I hate this. This make any sense to you?
Cool winds. Keep your eyes sharp. Be careful. Be careful.
Train smarter to get fit faster. With the freeletics app, all it takes is
Episode 1313, ladies and gentlemen. It's a number. It's a very important number.
Very important.
Tell me why.
Why 1313 is important?
Yes.
Well, we got two 13s back to back, so it doubles the normal potency of 13, which is already a mystical number, which terrifies people in the West. They think it's unlucky, but in Tibetan Buddhism, it's considered a very lucky and auspicious number.
Yeah, I was staying in a hotel in Vegas. They have no 13th floor, and I don't think they had a 4th floor either.
The 4th?
Yeah, there's something about some cultures. The number 4 is unlucky.
How many cultures do we get to influence our buildings these days? That's what's crazy. And what's crazier is at some point, someone convinced a person, listen, can we just not do a 13th floor? And they listened to him. I'm like, all right, I guess we'll just go from 12 to 14.
Shooter Jennings has it in a song. When I check in to 1410, I know what room I'm really in. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's what's so funny about it is because, like, that's the whole problem, isn't it? It's like people want to pretend they're not in the 13th floor when they fucking know they are. Right. Instead of just acknowledging, this is where I'm at. No, we're in 14, we're 14. 14, call the 14th floor, just call it and it'll be that. Dude, when I was in college, we had to do service for, like, to get the degree. You had to go do, like, service overseas. So we went to India, to Dharamsala, and we taught the monks English. And I was sitting with, like, listening, overhearing a monk in a conversation with someone teaching him English, and the person's trying to explain to him how there isn't a 13th floor in buildings in the West. And the monk was like,
My mana is gone.
Levitate? Like, is it missing? How do they do it? He was genuinely perplexed. It was like a magical thing.
Yeah. Well, in a culture that forces its citizens, if they want to run the country, you have to believe in something that, whether you're a Christian or whether you're a Baptist or Mormon, whatever you are, there's certain parts of your religion that if you just don't want to analyze them, just want to put them out on paper, you want to say, okay, did this really happen? Did this guy really die and come back to life? Is everybody agreeing on this? Everyone's agreeing that a guy became a zombie, and he came back 3 days later, and we're cool with that. This is a part of the doctrine. So this is like a part of running the country. I don't think you can be an atheist in this country. I don't think we would let you run it.
I think you do have to have some affiliation with some religion or another. Probably. Yeah, and right now it seems to be like it needs to be Christianity. Like there needs to be like every president is aligned themselves with it.
It's like we're trapped in this thing that you are when you're young. You know this thing you are when you're young, where you're looking at the people that are older than you. You're looking at society and you're like 16, and you're just starting to think, God damn, I'm gonna be graduating from high school soon. What am I gonna do with my life? You know, you feel so much angst.
Yeah.
But you always think, yeah, this shit doesn't make any sense, but one day it will. And one day we'll be the grown-ups.
Yeah.
And we'll be the ones that get to make the rules, and we'll go, hey, we're doing things all wrong, folks. We're doing things out of momentum rather than out of logic. That time never comes. And then all of a sudden you're like you or I, where you're middle-aged. Yeah. We're middle-aged men. I'm a 51-year-old man. I'm almost 52. We're middle-aged. If we're lucky. If we're super lucky. Reality, we're closer to death.
Yeah,
for sure. So, and we're still trapped by this thing where you have to pretend you absolutely know. Look, live your life like Jesus is real. Live your life like you want to follow those tenets. And you'll probably live a better life. If you really follow the actual true tenets of Christianity, you really want to believe that a guy came back to life, and it only happened once, and that you have to follow this book.
Yeah.
And if you don't follow this book that was clearly written and rewritten and fucked with by people, and you know that people are known liars.
Yeah.
Like, why do we have court? Because people lie. What really happened? You have to fucking get a bunch of people to sit down and figure out what really happened. This guy saying, I didn't do anything, Your Honor.
Yeah.
And they got prints and DNA.
Yeah.
And in that world of known liars, we believe a crazy story that was written when people had no science, but we accept it because we think it makes the world a better place.
Yeah, man, it's nuts. And there's like so many levels of that where it's like, yeah, that's one obvious level that if you want to take Jesus literally, which is you have to in certain forms of Christianity, you're going to have to deal with some pretty severe cognitive dissonance. You'll be taught maybe to question your instincts, but then go one step deeper and start thinking, because the real question is, well, what is real? Like, I mean, there's obvious shit that's clearly bullshit.
Yeah.
But wait, then when you start going down, you realize, like, you get to the point of the self. And then you start realizing that the self and this Jesus that everyone believes in are very similar in the sense that, like, you know, I don't say I believe in gravity. You would think I was crazy if I said it. Would be a crazy thing to say, you know, I believe there's gravity. There is gravity. It's testable. It works. But what do you always hear when people are like, if you want to succeed, what do? You believe in yourself. And it's like, wait, what do you mean believe in yourself? I am a self. Why do I have to believe in it, right? So that...
It's just it's a clunky way of saying self-doubt is crippling.
Well, self-doubt, rejection, I hate myself, I love myself. All these things have within it this concept of the self. And a lot of folks have not spent much time really exploring, like, well, what is the self? Like, what is my particular self? And I think it kind of reminds me of when we were Sasquatch hunting. You know, the self, or the many people's self is very similar to Bigfoot.
Yeah.
It's a thing that they imagine that there's signs of, but they've never really quite seen the Bigfoot, you know? But, you know, remember, that's how they're in the trail. It's a gift. It means he likes you.
Yeah. They would think that Sasquatches were taking and leaving gifts, taking their gifts and leaving their own gifts, swapping gifts.
Yeah, yeah. And
they believed it.
They believed it.
They believed it the same way people believe in a religion. You know, yeah. I had a friend, and she was a Mormon. I've told the story before, so forgive me if you heard it. She was a Mormon, but I think it's important. And she was a devout her whole life, and then the family just fell out of it. And then they started realizing, like, they started going into the history of it, and they started thinking it was preposterous. It was right around when Book of Mormon was coming out, too. You know, that hilarious musical.
I didn't see it.
It's great. It's really good. But she was really honest about it. She was like, the problem is, like, growing up in that fundamentalist background, it makes me very susceptible to, like, healers and, like, psychics and clairvoyants and bullshit are spiritual people. She's like, I get sucked into bullshit. And she was, like, almost kind of upset.
Yeah.
I mean, no, not almost. Like, she was kind of upset, but, like, perplexed. Like, how do you rewire yourself when you've been trained to believe that a 14-year-old boy in 1820 found golden tablets that contained the lost work of Jesus, and that all the Native Americans were the lost tribe of Israel?
Oh my God.
I mean, that's the story, right? A 14-year-old boy, he had a magic rock, he was the only one who could read it.
It's crazy.
She started looking into it.
And she's out.
Gone. Yeah, gone.
And that's sad too, man, because like, if you could take some like basic tenets which are true and not based on, it kind of reminds me of like, you know, you hear someone, he's taking ayahuasca and he comes to you and he's got a profound message that came to him from some mythological creature. A dragon, a butterfly has told him some kind of profound fucking thing. And you realize, the bubble machine of profundity.
You got a bubble machine for 1313 episodes.
Yeah, whenever we're talking about...
It's cool. I like it. Let's keep it rolling.
So, you know...
Don't get caught up in popping them, though.
I know, that's a problem of getting too high. You're like, fuck talking. What do we do? Let's just pop bubbles.
Let's let the bubbles fly.
But you know what I'm saying? It's like, for them to really, like, take in the basic wisdom they got from the mythological creature... They needed a mythological creature. The mythological creature said something to them along the lines of, you need to love yourself more. You need to give more to your community, whatever the message is. But if your Uber driver said that to you, it wouldn't get through because it wasn't like phosphorescent. It didn't have multiple heads. So similarly, with these religions, what happens is you do get some real transcendent wisdom that's sort of timeless mixed in with it, and then the people, because they realize like, oh my God, it was kind of a fairy tale, they also reject the good stuff inside of it. And that to me is the big tragedy of any kind of fundamentalist literalist interpretation that's being forced on people, is because within that is inevitably something great, or it wouldn't be so viral. Like Christianity wouldn't be here right now if there wasn't a core thread in it that had a beautiful message in it.
It makes people nicer people. I actually had a really big conversation this weekend with a very good friend about it, about another very good friend who's very religious. And we were saying, like, I think for some people it's an amazing framework and a guide to live your life. I really do believe that. I have several friends that are very devout Christians.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And they're the nicest people I know. And Mormons, by the way. I have friends that are Mormons still to this day. I have several friends that are Mormons, and they're some of the nicest people.
Yeah.
And I don't care if they believe something that I don't believe in. That's okay. It's okay. It is okay. But, I mean, the idea that everyone is supposed to buy into stuff without questioning it is the reason why we are 51-year-old, 16-year-olds.
Dude, I agree. And then there's the deeper symbolic shit that seems to be encoded in Christianity, whether from people projecting their own understanding on a pretty wild symbol set, or maybe it was intentional. Either way, there's like a cool, like, you know, if we talked about this, like, if you take a cube and unfold it, it makes a crucifix, and like the cube represents pre-Big Bang conditions, and the crucifix represents past, present, and future intersecting with eternity. And
so if you have a square, I get it. So the length, the height is twice as the width.
Yeah.
Okay.
It unfolds into a crucifix.
For people that are annoyed with that sound, it sounds like a pencil sharpening over and over and over again.
Sorry about that, y'all, but bubbles don't come free. You need a machine. You gotta have a...
We can hire somebody. Hire some dude. Just blow up.
Lest you lose the...
My mana is gone.
start of a new world order.
Nest invader, perish.
Come on.
Mana is gone.
In the dirt, worm.
Death is a natural.
Gruesome. That was... Just tell them I said it's fine for you to join. I'm quite popular. They may... blame them.
Okay, I want you to imagine for a second everything you buy for your house. Soap, shampoo.
Or like autonomy in the sense that how much is the gut and the neurons in the gut and the neurons in the heart and all the interactions they're having with things that have different DNA than us affecting what we do. And like,
they think a lot.
That's so weird.
I think it contributes to depression.
Yeah, yeah. And it contributes to what else? Autism? What other behaviors? Or in other words, are we just essentially being driven around by some kind of strange, microscopic hive of creatures living in our shit?
In some way, yeah. You know, Brian Callen had a pretty bad case of psoriasis. Kept coming back. It's nasty. Really bothered me. Tried a bunch of stuff. Couldn't get it fixed. Went to one doctor who's a specialist in gut biome and its connection to autoimmune disorders. And that guy fixed him up.
My mana is gone.
Just changed up his probiotics, like what he's taking, prebiotics and probiotics. Gave him some like heavy duty shit. I forget exactly what he said. But it fixed it, and it was basically something going on in his gut biome. And that can be affected by stress.
Yeah.
It can be affected by lack of sleep. There's all sorts of stuff that goes on in your body. Like, we have to think of ourselves as a super organism. Like, essentially like an ecosystem. We have to think of ourselves as like, you think of yourself as you. Hey, it's me, it's Joe, it's Duncan, we're talking, we're friends. Hey, what's up, buddy? But really, what we are is the keepers of the realm. Okay, we got a whole realm of things living inside of our body, and we're feeding it Twinkies, and it's freaking out. And it's like, you fucking moron. Yeah, but I like what it feels like when Twinkies go in my face. Yeah. So your fucking knees hurt all the time.
Yeah.
Your back is killing you. You have all these inflammation problems. You're getting zits, and you're 40 years old. Like, what the fuck? Because you're eating dog shit, man. You're not giving your body anything good. You're the keeper of the realm.
And also, this is something I've been thinking about. Is like how much data we're eating, which is equivalent to Twinkies. It's like you eat a bunch of Twinkies.
Hyundai Tucson with available blind spot collision warning. One of Hyundai's 10 IIA test class.
Right now, get 0% APR for 60 months on the award-winning Tucson, Santa Fe, and Arizona. Only at Hyundai. This is gonna like yourself.
The world of cookies first started.
This right here for the beast.
This is for the captain. You know, that one who has it all.
First one in the gym, and the last one after that.
That playmaker on offense. Speed, vision, power. Gotta have it all the way it is.
Your body starts hurting, then you're just slurping up whatever the fuck on the phone, right? Which by the way, I'm talking about me. This is what I do. My bouncing around from like Drudge Report to Huffington Report to Reddit Conspiracy to Reddit What the Fuck, zit popping. How long before you're looking at like a zit popping video, and then that takes you down into a place of like, oh, let's just move to animal cysts.
Yep.
And then you fall asleep, you wake up screaming.
Yep.
And that's the equivalent of getting like gas, isn't it? From eating like a huge Taco Bell meal. Only instead of farting, you're just screaming in the middle of the night because you dreamed a cult was dragging you into the forest. It's like, this is, to me, we seem to have not quite acknowledged that data is as much of, is like a food.
Yeah.
And that so much of the weirdness that people are showing, these like strange behaviors, it's got to be because of the crazy shit they're sucking into their optic nerves, right?
It is. It's also the ability to affect people very rapidly, whether to get a reaction from someone positive or negative. People are so addicted to that.
Yeah.
I watch people getting these Twitter feeds back and forth, and fucking smart people, man. A smart friend of mine who I respect greatly tried to get me to retweet something mean that he was saying to someone else. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. What are you doing with your time? We get the one thing that I've done over the last week. We did a podcast with Bert and Tom and Ari, and we all looked at the amount of screen time we put on our phones. Ari was proposing no smartphones.
Yeah.
My fucking screen time was like 4 hours for a day. I was like, what? And I'll lie to myself and I'll say, oh, most of that's email and taking care of business. No, most of it is going through Google Newsfeed looking for crazy stories of like animal attacks.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm always looking at, man. I watched a video today of a guy riding his dirt bike and a bear's chasing him. I'm like, what in the fuck? What is happening?
Look, man, I don't want to try to like enable your addiction But honestly, I think the internet has come to depend on your wild animal attack videos. Like, you have kind of become like a news outlet for the best wild animal attacks.
People need to know.
People need to see this shit, man. Like, we don't know. I've never seen a vulture fight a rabbit or out of...
People do have a very weird idea of what animals are. And I think that the average person, I'm certainly no expert, but amongst the average person, I have a much better understanding of wildlife because I'm out in the wild several times a year hunting. It's a different world. It's a different world. I'm no expert, but my perception of it is as someone who sees wildlife in the wild. I see dead ones that other ones have killed. We came across a calf that had been ripped apart by wolves. I mean, we see stuff. And you realize what that is, what that fucking forest really is.
Yeah.
It's this competing ecosystem of life, and it's going on all the time. And there's big things jacking smaller things, and there's birds snatching things off the ground and snatching other birds out of trees, and it's happening all the time. And it's magic, and you have to have it that way because otherwise the whole population of the planet would be overrun. You have to have your sorrow of watching the bear tear apart the fawn. That has to happen, because if it didn't happen, you'd have too many fawns. They'd be everywhere. You'd have too many deer. And you have to have someone who can take care of the bears. Otherwise, the bears will overrun the city where the humans live. And we need to think about that. And people don't want to, because they don't want to shoot Yogi. They don't want to shoot Yogi and Boo Boo. They're our friends. This is a teddy bear. I grew up with a bear. You don't know what a bear is. I've seen a bear in the wild. When you see a bear in the wild, you're like, oh, you don't give a fuck about me. You're some weird, heartless beast that is majestic looking, who runs around eating moose and deer babies. That's what your deal is. You eat grass and berries, and you like to lay around. You're fucking cool as shit. It's a cool-ass animal.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you hate it, but you gotta understand what the fuck it is. It's not like this idea like people don't want people to hunt bears in certain places, particularly like they're trying to regulate the size of the amount of grizzly bears in certain parts of the country. They're like, hey, we need to keep a handle on this. Like, a couple people get mauled, you know, people start walking through Yellowstone and get attacked. It happens like a little bit more rapidly. The numbers get to a certain, like these things have no fear of people. Like, we can actually help the population if they hand out bear tags. You can't kill the bears. Don't you kill the bears. There's a reason why there's no fucking bears in California, Don. Only black bears. Our fucking state flag has a grizzly bear on it. Did you ever notice that? Yeah, the state flag is a grizzly bear. They eradicated all the grizzly bears because they were eating people. So in the fucking 1800s, dude, there's a town. I think it's called Levesque. It's out near, like, on the way to Bakersfield. Lebec. I think it's called Lebec. It's a town named after the last dude that got killed by a grizzly bear in California. Yeah, and to investigate this, they exhumed his body, and it's ripped apart. Like, you know, knees were snapped in half and shit.
You have to destroy this tape.
He got torn apart by a bear, and they killed the bear, and they buried him, and that was the last bear. It was the last bear attack. They killed all the bears. The reason why they killed all the bears is because that's what you have to do, you fuck. Do you want to be able to walk to your car?
Yes.
Okay, you don't want bears in Santa Monica. Okay, shut up. Just shut up. We're going into their territory, man. They'll come into yours too. Okay, stop. Don't be silly. We definitely shouldn't kill all the bears. We should kill a few. We should definitely kill some. We should kill some wolves too.
I disagree, Joe. We have to keep everything alive.
I'm gonna bring back pterodactyls.
I wouldn't mind that.
Snatching people right off of cars.
Well, come on. They could be controlled. Come on. They could be controlled. Put them in some kind of domes. I don't know, a padded dome. Bring them back. Fuck it.
People shooting on them. Bullets just bouncing down, hitting people on the ground.
Yeah.
Well, Kevlar skin.
It's you know, I saw something, you know, this podcast. It's like everywhere now. It's like dandelions. You can't anywhere. I'm always getting suggested videos from your podcast. And I saw one, because I've been cutting down my meat consumption.
Good for you.
And, but that doesn't mean I don't eat meat. I just want to cut it down a little bit. And I have been feeling kind of enjoyable from time to time since. And you know that, I don't know if you let yourself do this, you probably don't, but that feeling of like kind of bullshit, like, I'm a little better now. right?
Yeah, I'm a little better of a person.
And I was really like, I wasn't like overt. It wasn't like hyper obnoxious, but just the kind of sense of like, I did it. I cut down my beef consumption, and I'm eating, a cheese here and there. And anyway, this video popped up, and it's some guest, I don't know who it was, talking about the number of animals that die in a bean field. Like any bean field that you see, so many animals just ground up and murdered. And it was great because I realized like, oh, of course, yeah, right. The trick I was trying to play on myself is the same. It's the 13th floor shit. It's like, I want the world to look like a Disney film.
But it's a bit of a cop-out, even saying that, my saying that, because the reality is there's another solution. The solution is organic gardening, right? So you can organically garden. If you get a plot of land and get some friends together, you could all grow enough vegetables so that you'd have to take place in with large-scale agriculture. Or if you're dealing, rather, with large-scale agriculture. That's the problem. The problem is we have to feed, just in LA alone, the greater Los Angeles area, what is it, like 20 million something people? That's so many goddamn people. And no one's growing anything other than wheat. So what do we have? What do we have? We have someone has to grow this fucking food for us. So they have to do it large scale.
Yeah.
And when they do it large scale, it involves combines. And those fucking things are indiscriminate. They're just chewing up the ground. And things get caught up in it. And that's why when they clean fields, when they pick whatever they're growing, you always see vultures. After they run the combine, you see vultures circling the fields because they know rabbits and rats. And,
Jesus, man.
And all kinds of bugs. I mean, any kind of I mean, I don't know if you care about bugs, that's a weird thing, right? It's like vegans will get to this, some vegans will get to this like line where they're like, yeah, but that's a mosquito. Fuck mosquitoes.
Yeah.
They have malaria. You get to like a life form ethical boundary where you can't relate to a roach.
Also, the hilarious thing when it comes to assigning levels of sentience and then based on that deciding if you should eat something or not, you run into like a lot of weird problems, which is like, number one, you're assuming a lot just because they don't have the sort of nervous system you have. I mean, and who knows, we project most of everything we are into the world and we don't really know what the phenomena is. But I saw some like video of an ant taking care of the ant's baby. And I don't know if you've probably heard about how trees communicate with the
mycelium.
Yes. Yeah. And like how they'll send nutrients to their children. Yeah. And then you start running into, I think, which is a really fascinating problem, which is, what if it's all alive and sentient and feeling for real? What if there is throughout the entire universe just a sentient field of consciousness that is interacting with matter in a way that it produces what we call life, and that life is feeling terror, love, maybe in different ways than we would understand it, but it's still there.
That's a really under consideration by legitimate scientists. In fact, Sam Harris's wife just wrote a book about that.
Oh, really?
It's one of the subjects it's called Conscious. And Conscious or Consciousness? Sorry, I don't remember which. I haven't read it yet, but I heard them talk about it on his podcast. And the concept that used to be like super woo-woo was, what if everything has consciousness?
Yeah.
What if everything had, but it just, it can't move, it can't express itself, it can't change its environment, it's limited. Just like we can't fly and we can't swim underwater and breathe water. Like we're limited in our physical abilities.
Right.
But we assume that whatever limitations we have, this is where it ends. This is where the buck stops here.
Yeah.
Like everything that doesn't move has got to be stupid. But it might not be. Which is one of the reasons why nobody wants to buy a house after someone's been killed in it. Right? Like, what if that house retains memory? That was something that Rupert Sheldrake proposed a long time ago. Let's get that. What is that very strange theory where everything is morphic resonance, I think it's called? Theory of morphic resonance. He's a fascinating guy. And he's like a guy who's not afraid to take some chances and say some really woo-woo shit. Yeah. And I think he's a Christian as well.
Yeah, I love his book. I think you're the one who was telling me some of the studies are not so great in it, though.
Well, it wasn't that I said that, it's that other people complained about that. And because there's some studies that apparently people lean on that aren't super legit, like the dog knowing you're coming home one.
Yeah.
Like, you got to replicate that shit, because first of all, the guy might have a loud car. The dog can hear shit way better than you are.
Yeah.
Like, how far away is the guy when the dog starts going towards the door? Or does the guy just come home every night and the dog has like an internal clock and he knows, hey, it's 5 o'clock. Mike must be coming home. Like, have they replicated this for 11:30? What if Mike starts coming home in a Tesla? And you can't hear shit.
Who knows?
What if he comes home and does the dog actually know he's coming, or is the dog just hearing things? The dog hearing the door, a car.
I mean, it's almost doesn't always kind of seem like the most boring possible solution is usually the right one. It's like, what's the most boring thing? The most boring thing is nothing's happening, but you're imagining the dog is somehow has a telepathic link to you.
Occam's razor, right?
Yeah, Occam's the simplest, but it's also the most boring. Like, you know, these crazy fucking UFOs. I'm sorry if you've talked about this a bunch on the podcast, but the UFOs that we're seeing, that the Navy is releasing these videos of these Tic Tacs zipping around. And it's Navy pilots. It's not people we interviewed in that show. It's Navy pilots who are like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck this is. And I have great conversations with Uber drivers. And like, we were talking about it, and this guy was like, and a lot of them are programmers and shit. And this guy was like, it's probably it's a glitch in the type of radar they're using. I think it must be a glitch. I mean, that's the most likely reality. They're not seeing it with their own eyes.
They're not?
I don't think so. I think they're just picking it up on radar. And so he's like, maybe it's a glitch, or maybe it's like...
We should find that out.
Be careful.
Can you Google if the pilots were picking it up on radar? The pilot spotted UFO. To see if because I know some guys have spotted things with their own eyes. I know for sure some guys have.
I'm not sure if the data.
I think it's probably relevant to the conversation, though. It's probably a good thing that we know. People listening going, yeah, what the fuck? I get super skeptical. I feel like almost like it's a plot. I don't want to go full Eddie Bravo, but I feel like when I see people talking about UFOs, I'm like, okay, what else is going on? What are you distracting me from? Is this really a big issue? I was like, is it really happening? Well, can I see it? What do you got? You got nothing? Oh, you got like some radar. You got radar from 1, 2 pilots, 3 pilots. Okay, I believe it, but I want to see more. Why do I want to see more? Like, what am I? And you'll get caught up in it. It'll chew up hours of your day.
Yeah, man.
There's a lot of those guys that we ran into on that show. I felt bad for them because they didn't understand what had happened to them. They had gotten caught in this weird loop of looking for secrets and looking for mysteries to be solved and looking for hidden conspiracies, and they get caught in that. And some of that shit is real, which is part of the problem. Some of it you can come across, the Gulf of Tonkin and the Northwoods, Operation Northwoods, you can come across a bunch of them that are real and raw, and you can see how they put that together. You're like, what? You can see real crazy conspiring.
Yeah.
And then you get lost and think it's everywhere.
That's right. Yeah, well, I mean, this is like, dude, I was just...
What is this, Jamie? Oh. According to Day, the AAVs.
Is that the new UFO?
How about you say UFO? You
Come on, yeah. Are we really going to change UFO?
They have their own whole thing. We're AAVs. We don't refer to us as UFOs. These are my pronouns. The AAVs appeared at an altitude greater than 80,000 feet, far higher than commercial or military jets typically fly. Initially, the Princeton's radar team.
It's a radar, really high processor. Prince Story is what it's called. It's like a really high processing radar.
Why is it spelled Princeton? It's Prince Story.
Yeah, no, it is Princeton.
The radar team didn't believe what they were seeing, chalking up the anomalies to an equipment malfunction. But after they determined that everything was operating as it should, they began detecting instances which the AAVs, I want to know what the fuck that means, dropped with astounding speed to lower, busier airspace. Day approached the Princeton's commander about taking action. He said, I was chomping at the bit. I really wanted to intercept these things. What?
Yeah.
That's we have the fucking craziest people in this country. Yeah. Like there's an alien, man. I want to chase it. I want to catch that
motherfucker. I was chomping
by the tail. Anomalous aerial vehicles. Get the fuck out of here. There's already a name for it.
Whoever invented that new name is an ass.
He's an asshole.
Give us a break.
I was actually the one who decided to call them AAVs.
Oh, come on.
Technically, it's not an unidentified flying object.
You're not taking our fucking UFOs, man. I'm gonna fight that.
What is it again? What is the exact phrase?
aerial vehicle.
Anomalous aerial vehicle.
It's an AAV.
You're an asshole.
Yeah.
Anomalous. It's an anomaly.
I want to propose a new name for UFOs. Anonymous aerial vehicles.
It's probably a part of $1 billion study. Two fighters were diverted to intercept one of the strange objects. When they first arrived on the scene, the pilots didn't see any flying objects, but they did observe what the lead pilot, Commander David Fravor, later referred to as a disturbance in the ocean. The water was churning with white waves breaking over what looked like a large object just under the surface.
Yeah.
Then they noticed one of the objects flying about 50 feet above the water. Fravor, the commander of the elite Black Aces Squadron, this is a goddamn Nicolas Cage movie, who was a Top Gun program graduate with more than 16 years of flying experience, described it as about 40 feet long, shaped like a Tic-Tac candy, with no obvious means of propulsion. It's white. It has no wings. It has no rotors. I go, holy shit, what is that?
Dude, you know the guy, whoever the company is that makes Tic Tacs, they were like, yes, they're calling them Tic Tacs. It's free publicity.
Totally. Tic Tacs is the one sponsoring this whole deal.
You think it is?
Yeah, man. People are buying Tic Tacs right now. Listen to this. You just say Tic Tac enough. You're like, you remember those old subliminal things you used to do in movie theaters when you were watching a movie and it would say, hungry, eat popcorn. Like every 100th frame, they would stick like hungry, eat popcorn. They would put subliminal text on the screen. You'd be like, damn, I want some popcorn. You just say Tic Tac.
Tic Tacs.
People are buying Tic Tacs right now.
Well, you know that pilot's got great breath, right? That's a Tic Tac man. It's like the first time you see a UFO, the first thing that pops in your head is, it looks like a mint. That's nuts. There had to be other ways to describe it.
You got stock Tic Tacs. For sure.
I Googled Tic Tac after he said that because I couldn't remember if they were square or if they were like
they look like I would expect a good UFO to look like.
Yeah.
You
kind
know,
of boring.
Yeah. Like super Apple, like an Apple made a UFO.
Yeah. It's like a pretty sleek.
Yeah.
But the going into the ocean part, that's the part I like the best because that kind of lines up with Hollow Earth theory and like it maybe like they're flying
they
down.
have a base.
Yeah, in the center of the Earth.
Of course they have a base in the Earth. Why wouldn't you have a base in the ocean? We never go there. Do you ever fly over? I was just in Hawaii. You fly over 5 hours of water. It's just water.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's that Strava app thing. I feel like we've talked about literally everything. You know the Strava app? Okay, good. It's great, man. I love that I have to think. I'm pretty sure we've talked about this. The heat maps, the Strava heat maps seem to show people walking under the ocean and stuff.
Walking?
Yeah. We haven't?
No.
Oh, so yeah, because like Strava, it's like, I think it was Strava, right? It was like a way for you to track your steps. And some people apparently went to bases in the Arctic or in the ocean walking around. And it showed up before they could like turn that function off for top secret facilities, like the places they blur out on Google Maps.
So do you think there's like a military base under the water somewhere where submarines go?
God, man, I want to think that, but I'm
like
always...
in that movie, The Meg?
Yeah, I think it's probably a technical error, but fuck, maybe. I mean, I don't know. It's like the implication of these Tic Tacs and all of it, if you really want to like... The first, to me, the most obvious one, minus the churning water evidence, is that it's some kind of equipment malfunction.
Well, it's also that they have an unlimited budget for Black Ops.
Yeah.
We don't know what that number is.
That's right.
We don't get to know.
Yeah.
Right? All that weird shit they do when they're making stealth bombers and all that Area 51 stuff.
Yeah.
Like, how much money goes to that? Like, what is the number? Like, let's Google this. How much does the U.S. spend on Black Ops?
I was going to bring this up in the middle of what you guys are talking. There's a program here that was going on. The AATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, was going on and had a
just
budget.
the AATIP. Yeah. I'm gonna fuck you out of your money, but I'm just gonna use the AATIP.
$22 million is what their budget was in 2012, and it said that doesn't still go on, but apparently it does. Luis Elizondo says it was still operating, and he is part of.
So they spent $22 million to see if the UFOs were a threat.
A year.
And then there's the To the Stars Academy.
Yeah,
that's Tom DeLonge stuff.
Yeah. So,
well,
some of it's still going on.
Listen, I'm fucking rooting for it. I want it to be real. I would love it if it was real.
But if you look at like the history of the great ideas, a lot of them did come from like weird moments, you know, like Tesla, like basically had a seizure and felt like it was being contacted by something. Like you do run into stories of, at the very least, inspiration, but quite often innovation coming to people via like
a transmission almost.
A transmission.
Well, I've been thinking this for a long time, that maybe ideas are living things. And these ideas, even though you think of them as something your brain's creating, and maybe your brain is creating it, but maybe it uses your brain to create it so that it can manifest itself in the real world. So when you have ideas, whether ideas that turn out to be art or music, like, you know, Jimi Hendrix comes out with Voodoo Child, you are inspired by that. You see it, it gives you a great feeling. You exchange currency to listen to it. I mean, just that one song. How much money has been generated by Voodoo Child? I mean, it's one of the greatest songs in the history of the known universe. There's the opening guitar riff. I've listened to that 1,000 times, easy. I listen to it all the time. Whenever I'm like, I need a pick me up. That I mean, it's a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece of music. And where'd that idea come from? Well, it came from his brain, right? But where was it before it was in his brain? Well, how did his brain cook it up? And what is it? What are these things? They're just floating around that you grab out of culture. And how do you turn them into something that people go crazy for? Because occasionally a guy will take one of those ideas and make Voodoo Child, or, you know, make someone else's song, or make someone else's painting, or, you know, make a fucking building that's inspiring. There's these things that come into your head.
That's right.
And you at the end, what they really do is they're like the eggs of objects, because they come to your mind, you think about them, and then you say, I'm going to make a fucking clock. And you start making a clock.
That's
like,
right.
Where's that coming from? It's just your creativity, and it's just your mind, it's just your imagination. Well, it's just your thought process, your synapses firing. Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right. There's no real woo-woo. Or is there? What the fuck is a thought? Figure that out. No one knows what that is, especially where are they coming from? I mean, how many times you've written a joke and you're laughing yourself as you're writing? Like, where the fuck did that come from?
Yeah, well, I mean, or saying anything. Sometimes, like, you're watching sentences come out of your mouth, and you're sort of, you don't feel like,
every day, all the time, right now.
Where's the, you know, who's articulating it? There's I've been studying Buddhism, and any Buddhists out there, if I fuck this up, I'm sorry. If you're more advanced or know more about it, so I'm probably gonna say the words wrong and stuff. It's really interesting. So it's like there's like 8 consciousnesses. I think it's 8, and the 6th one is your thought, the continuum of thoughts, right? So that's like where most people hang out, and they think that's who they are, is the infinite cycle of repeating thoughts in their head. So below that is your senses, and then the one right above that is the 7th, and that's what is considered your subconscious in the West. But so that's where all your memories are. That's where all your just all the shit you can't remember that happened to you, that stuck back there, that appears in people's art or appears in your neurosis or whatever. And then above that is the 8th consciousness, and that's the stored experience of all human beings, and that's happening. It's like the global mind, or it's
the Akashic records.
Yeah, well, yeah, the Akashic records. Yeah, and so basically that one drips down like water in a cave. It drips down into your subconscious, which drips down into your thoughts. So when you're having these thoughts, according to this model, it's not necessarily your thoughts. You're getting a kind of distillate that's rolling down through the global mind, being flavored by your subconscious, and then being flavored by your identity or who you think you are. And then so by the time it comes out of you, it's got you wrapped up inside of it, but it's a projection of some like shared mind. It's pretty cool.
That makes actual sense.
Yeah.
I know that sounds like crazy voodoo hippie talk, but it actually makes sense.
Yeah.
That we all know that there's something that we share. And we all feed off of each other. I mean, you and I have said this many times that I am a different person with you.
Yeah.
Like we're different together, and we're different with other people as well. I mean, that's how human beings are. When we interact with each other, we have a bonding thing. There's an interaction thing.
Yeah.
And that's why some people are toxic for you. I mean, the idea that you're supposed to stay with everyone is like crazy. Like some people are just not good for you. It's not a good mix. You know, you're not good for them. They're not good for you. Get out.
Yeah.
But that there's something that's going on. It's not you just as an individual. And then when we're talking about gut biome and that as well.
Yeah.
And you're also sharing gut biome with each other. You're sharing DNA with each other.
Yeah.
You're sharing the skin. There's little organisms living on your body. You hug people with no shirt on. You're sharing organisms.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why it feels good, I bet.
Yeah, man.
You know, I mean, it's probably a great way to swap organisms to keep them spreading.
I mean, yeah, it benefits your biome if it wants to pollinate or get out into the world for sure.
I was listening to a podcast, the Stephen Ranella podcast, Meat Eater, and there was a guy on who was an expert in moving wildlife around. How they sometimes they'll move wolves into certain particular areas. They had too many moose on this one island, and so they moved wolves in. But the wolves, there wasn't enough of them, and they were on an island, so they all started fucking each other, and they were fucking their kids, and their DNA just was a mess. Yeah, just all sorts of inbreeding, and it was just terrible. Which is also fascinating. It's like nature's like, no. You can't just stand around and fuck each other.
Give you to my ancestors. Mana is gone.
Blessings. Celerim.
Look at what limps into my lovely lair.
Time for me to clean up yet another of your messes.
My mana is gone.
Is no defense enough?
Wait. I'm afraid
death is simply the way of forgiveness. Get on with it, exile.
I cannot carry this.
You gave my pride a bloody nose. Now
I try never to miss a good ambush.
This one's going to hurt, isn't it?
Kill me yet again. I'll return stronger.
There's only one.
Thus,
Is what
we
separates
evolve.
the wolves from the pups.
You should have. You're a smart one, exile.
gone. I cannot carry this.
Blessings. Celerim.
gone.